What's up? Welcome to week 3 of us being on YouTube. We are so glad that you're here with us today. Today we're starting a brand new series called Quarantine, because isn't it crazy how over the span of just a few weeks, our world has changed so much. We went from going to school to now having school online, and some of you guys, you want to get out of your house so bad that you're begging your parents to take you back to school. We went from going out to eat with family and friends to now not being able to go out much at all. We used to go to the store and be able to get toilet paper and things that we need whenever we wanted, and now there's barely anything on the shelves. I went to Target just the other day to buy some stuff when they were telling all of us to go out and buy some of the essentials that we need. And so I go to Target, and I kid you not, I was walking the aisles and there was barely anything on the shelves. So I went to the frozen section of the store because I don't know how to cook, and so I was looking at like pizza bagels and all these things that I could just reheat in the oven and I could cook in the oven. And so I go over there and there was next to nothing on the shelves. I was like, are you kidding me? Meanwhile, just weeks prior to that, you could literally get anything you want in the stores. But every single day, our worlds are constantly looking different because of the coronavirus. And if you're like me, you are probably sitting in your house, going to your refrigerator every 5 minutes because you're bored, you're looking for a new snack, and all you really want to do is go out. And that's why today we're going to be talking about the topic of change. Because change is something that's inevitable, meaning you and I, we're going to experience change. We're experiencing it now, we're going to experience it 10 years from now. And one of the hardest changes that I had to experience happened just this past Monday. My fiance Jessica and I, we had been dating for almost 4 years. I proposed in July and we were set to get married on April 24th, just about 5 weeks from now. Hey friends, hey family, we are so sad to announce that due to COVID-19, we have to postpone our wedding to a later date. We don't know what the date is, but we will let you know. So we are sad for this to be the case. Because of this whole coronavirus, we had to postpone our wedding, which meant that all our family who got flights here from New York and Colorado and all our friends who were gonna come visit, they had to now change their plans. And then we had a DJ set up, we had food, we had all these things, her dress, my suit, everything ready to go, but because we had to put it on hold, we now don't know exactly when we're gonna get married yet. But that's what change does. Change it leaves us in this uncertain time, and for a lot of you guys, maybe that's where you're at. You're kind of confused, you're kind of lost, you're wondering what is going on with life. And so if you're here and you're struggling with this whole coronavirus thing, maybe you're questioning if like what's going on. I want to let you know that you're not alone. For me, it's been one of the hardest weeks of my life, and I know I'm struggling with it. And so if you're struggling, if you need prayer, if there's anything that you have questions about, make sure to write it in the comment section below so we can be praying for you and so we could reach out to you. Aside from the coronavirus, though, there are plenty of changes that we face in life. Some good ones that we want to happen, like when your parents allow you to finally get a cell phone. It's incredible, isn't it? Or you get an extended curfew and your parents let you stay out a little bit later than normal. Or having more freedom where you get to hang out with your friends. These are all changes that we want in life. And then there are other things that happen that we don't have much of a say in, that we don't really want to happen. Like when you think everything is going super well at home with your family and then your parents announce that they're getting a divorce. Or when your best friend no longer wants to be friends with you. Some of you watching right now, you might love the idea of change and you might be like, Steve, change is really not that big of a deal for me. But I know there's others of you that are like me and you absolutely hate change. You're probably struggling with this whole thing right now. And I want to let you know that if that's you, you're not alone. But here's the truth, no matter how we feel about change, it's going to happen. And so knowing that it's gonna happen, we need to figure out, how do we live in a world where it's constantly full of change, yet how do we stay strong when it happens to us? I have some good news for you. We're not the first group of people to experience this, and we're not the last group who are gonna experience change. In fact, there's a guy in the Bible who experienced a lot of it in his life. His name is Job. And Job is described as a wealthy man who was super popular, who lived with his large family in a town called Uz. And over the course of one day, over the course of 24 hours, Job had lost everything. Like I said, he was wealthy, he had a lot of possessions, and all of that was taken from him. And then, on top of that, he had 10 kids, because I said he had a really big family. He lost all 10 of his kids to death in one day. And so Job, over the course of one day, was left with absolutely nothing. To put this into perspective, in about 1 week, you and I, we were able to buy toilet paper, had our social gatherings postponed, and were told to be in quarantine. We had 1 week heads up. Job had one day when everything changed for him. This would be like you and I getting our phones taken away, our computers, our video games, any possession that we own taken away from us. Losing it all in one day. And look at how Job responds in Job chapter 1 verse 20. It says this, "At this, Job got up, tore his robe, and shaved his head. Then he fell to the ground in worship." And so what do we learn from Job right away? We learn is that when we experience change, when we experience hardship in life, we need to get up, we need to shave our heads, so grab a razor. I'm kidding, don't do that. But what we learn is this. Job right away went to worship. And so he worshiped God, and look at what he says in Job chapter 1 verse 21 through 22. It says, "Naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked I will depart. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. May the name of the Lord be praised." Notice this. In all this, Job did not sin by charging God with wrongdoing. You see, with all this heartache, confusion, and loss that Job endured, Job decided he was going to let his circumstance bring him closer to God instead of bringing him away from God. He could have easily gotten mad at this situation. He could have easily found himself blaming someone other than himself, yet he chose to rely on God. He chose to worship God. He chose to bring his questions and his concerns and anything that he had to God. Even later in the story, Job's wife would later tell him that, hey, maybe you should give up on God. But yet, Job remained faithful. The whole story is awesome, but what I love most about the story of Job is that you and I, we have a relationship with that God. You and I can cling to that God because God is the only constant in our lives. He is the only thing that will never change. Take a look at Hebrews 13:8. It says, Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever. You see, I don't want you to miss that. Jesus never changes. He is always the same. And in our world where things are constantly looking different, in our world where there are things happening that we might not have much of a say in, you and I, we need to hold on to that truth all the more. And that is the truth that Job held on to, that God never changes. I want you to think of a tree for a second, like this right here. Trees, they experience a lot of change, yet they remain standing, which is why I'm able to sit on it. And you may ask why? Well, because there's roots underneath the ground that are holding the tree in place. You see, with all the change happening around it, with the rain, with the wind, with the 4 different seasons, except here in California where we have 1, but with all that change happening, the tree is able to remain planted. The tree is able to remain standing strong. It could easily just decide to give up. It could easily fall over, but the roots are holding it together. When you and I, we cling to that unchanging God, when you and I fix our eyes on Jesus, when storms come, when things happen, when hardship takes place in our life, we're not going to be swayed back and forth. We're not going to fall to the ground. We're going to remain strong because we're grounded in an unchanging God. You see, our bottom line for today is this: we experience change, but God remains the same. You see, God is the solid, unmovable ground which we can cling to despite all the change happening around us. Our bottom line, I want to reiterate it, it's we experience change, but God remains the same. It was true back when the writer of Hebrews said it in Hebrews chapter 13, verse 8, and it is true today. And so what does that mean for us? It means that the God who loves you now is always going to love you. It means that the God who cares for you now is always going to care for you. It means that the next time you experience a change, something you might not like in life, which I guarantee you're going to, and so am I, we don't have to be uprooted by fear, frustration. We could know beyond a shadow of a doubt that we could cling to the one thing that is constant, and that is God. Instead, you can remain steady and stable by staying grounded in an unchanging God. And to help us do that, I want us to try a few things this week. The first thing I want you to do this week is remember when God was faithful. Remember when God was faithful. I want you to remember a time when God was faithful to you in the past. Remember a time when you saw God's goodness take place in your life or someone you know's life. Maybe it was coming to junior high ministry and finding your small group, or maybe it was at summer or winter camp. Maybe it was when your mom got better after being sick for a really long time, or your dad finally got that job that you guys had been praying for. Maybe it was a time something worked out just the way you prayed it would. And then after you think of that time, after you come up with that time you saw God's goodness in your life, I want you to write it down. Maybe write it in a journal, write it in a book, but I want you to always have that written down so you could go back to it. So when you face an uncertain time, you can remember that God was faithful in the past, knowing that He's going to be faithful in the future. And then after you write it down, I really want you to focus on Hebrews chapter 13, verse 8, and reflect on that verse that Jesus is the same yesterday, today, and forever. Focus on that during this season of quarantine, because if God was faithful in that circumstance or season of your life that you wrote down, you can be rooted knowing that He's going to be faithful again. Let's pray. God, thank you for today. Thank you for our time together. Thank you that we could cling to the one thing in our lives that will never change, and that is you. And so despite all the things that are happening around us, we could remain steady and stable knowing that you got us. And so I thank you for what you're doing in our lives. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen. Junior high ministry, we love you guys so much. I just want to remind you of a few things. Every single day we're on YouTube live at 3 p.m. We're doing a whole bunch of stuff on there, so make sure to tune in 3 p.m. every single day, Monday through Friday. We would love to see you. We love you guys a lot. God bless.